A €1 billion licensing bill has the citizens of one European country calling for an end to Microsoft licensing and product use by their government. Meanwhile, retail giant Tesco is rushing to escape VMware at an exceptional pace, despite massive risks to its infrastructure. So if you think enterprise IT budgets are spiraling out of control, you are not alone. And that's going to be a big topic of discussion on this week's episode of the 5 Bytes podcast. So without further ado, let's get into it. Recently, Microsoft published an article signaling that Windows 11 version 26H2 is coming soon. And they said this continues their focus on delivering a predictable, low disruption update experience for organizations and IT pros. They claim, for those on the most current release, that this release should be easy to adopt. They said Windows 11 version 26H2 uses the same shared servicing model as recent releases available annually in the second half of the calendar year. Supported devices get the feature update as a small enablement package instead of a full OS replacement like you might have experienced in the past. If your organization is already on Windows 11 24H2 or 25H2, the update to 26H2 is similar to a regular monthly update in most environments, with the goal being a small, quick installation, minimize user disruption, and no need for full reimaging or complex deployment motions. And if you happen to be on the non-standard version 26H1, which most people are not, you will not be able to do an in-place upgrade right away and will need to wait for an upgrade path made available at a later time. Now, 26H1 was not widely available, so it's likely to not apply to you. Microsoft went into more information on how they've standardized and made the updates more predictable and smaller, and they said that it's this because the common servicing branch approach includes the same source code base, same security and quality updates, and same compatibility validation across that servicing branch. The preview for 26H2 is already available for organizations to try out if you'd like to validate it. And when the time comes, Autopatch, Intune, or WSUS can be used. Microsoft suggests a ring rollout and advises that with the new servicing model, enterprises should strive to stay current going forward. They're essentially saying they're making it easier to stay up to date. Therefore, do your best to stay up to date. While the update will adhere to the principle of being small, it does come with some new features too, including an Ask Copilot feature that is an optional Windows search replacement with AI-enhanced functionality and deeper File Explorer integration through a dockable side panel. They've also redesigned context menus. They've implemented modern WinUI-based run window. They have Dutch language support for voice access added, and they've extended support periods of 24 to 36 months, amongst other improvements. And I'll share a link to the announcement if you'd like to check it out for yourself. You'll find that with episode 445 at 5bytespodcast.com or in the description of the YouTube video if you're watching the YouTube video of this episode. In surprising news, Business Insider has revealed the proposed $3 billion data center capacity deal between Microsoft and Oracle has fallen through due to security and compliance concerns. Now, I should state that this is according to Business Insider, who cited anonymous sources, so maybe take it with a pinch of salt. However, at a time when Microsoft and others are in a desperate scramble to get as many resources as possible for their data centers and to supply to the AI beast, this I found surprising. Also the fact that Oracle, okay, it's not as large as say a Google Cloud, an Azure, or an AWS, but they're fairly sizable in their own right. So Microsoft saying they had security or compliance concerns would be pretty startling if it's true. But Business Insider, they seem like a pretty credible source typically. I've covered them multiple times, particularly when there's been rumors of acquisitions. Now, it's been a while since acquisitions were common in this industry, particularly on the EUC side of things. So it's been a while. Maybe their credibility has gone down a little bit, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless and figured I'd share because you might find it interesting too. Unfortunately, there's been an increase in reports of issues after this month's Patch Tuesday Windows updates, including reported problems with OneDrive and Dropbox access, BitLocker recovery lockouts, and up to and as bad as blue screens of death. There's also been a report by neowin.net about another annoying problem with the recycle bin in Windows. They said that when you attempt to delete an item from the recycle bin, the confirm dialog will show you the internal file name of that content rather than the actual file name. So, for example, the file may be named abc.png, but the confirm dialog will ask if you're sure that you want to permanently delete $rxxxxx.png from the recycle bin. The correct name will be shown in the list view of the recycle bin, and if you restore the file, it will return with the correct name as well. The issue affects pretty much all supported versions of Windows client and server. I'd say, I guess it's kind of a minimal one, more of an aesthetic issue, although it is nice to know exactly what you're deleting when you're emptying the recycle bin. So it is a bit annoying. And Microsoft confirmed this issue and is working on a fix for some of the other issues they have yet to confirm. They're mostly being reported via like the subreddits and on social media. A more niche issue of sorts that was experienced after the recent Windows updates is that some financial companies or accountancy firms are receiving an unable to open work paper error when opening work papers in CCH ProSystem FX engagement or Work Paper Manager after June 9th of this year due to the June Windows updates. CCH ProSystem FX Engagement and CCH ProSystem FX Workpaper Manager use Microsoft Word automation to open and manage Word-based work papers. And after installing KB 5094126, some systems may enable or enforce enhanced security features such as virtualization-based security, hypervisor-enforced code integrity, and updated code integrity baselines. And when these features are active, Word may block certain ProSystem FX engagement automated functions, even though everything appears to be set correctly. Because engagement relies on these automation operations to prepare and open Word work papers, the security enforcement introduced by the update can prevent work papers from opening successfully. The vendor is now working with Microsoft on a permanent fix, but for now they're suggesting that customers uninstall KB 5094126. Yahoo has reported that Microsoft is being hit with a class action lawsuit in Seattle. They're being sued by shareholders who accuse the company of defrauding them and inflating stock price by failing to disclose slowing growth in its Azure cloud business and the need to spend billions of dollars on AI infrastructure. Recently, Microsoft had its biggest one-day decline on the stock market in 6 years, and it was worth about $357 billion of market value lost. The lawsuit says Microsoft attributed their slowing Azure growth and higher spending to capacity constraints as they diverted resources to AI related research and development and to its Copilot chatbot, whose rivals obviously include Gemini and also ChatGPT. The lawsuit is being led by the city of St. Clair Shores Police and Fire Retirement System in Michigan. So, obviously, um, this pension fund is probably heavily invested within Microsoft, and they're the ones leading this class action lawsuit. It'd be interesting to see where it goes. I think when you invest in a company, there's some risks. I mean, I've said it on this podcast before when going through quarterly earnings reports and stuff like that, that there's an awful lot of vagueness, which I don't understand how organizations continue to get away with that because they do bury the lead quite significantly. But considering that seems to be pretty normal practice, I'll be surprised if this class action lawsuit, if it does end up going to trial, is in the favor of those bringing the suit. But hey, I guess we'll see. On a previous podcast episode, I covered a story about major retailer Tesco who were embroiled in a case against Broadcom that stemmed from Tesco buying multiple years of perpetual licensing for VMware products, with the contract including an option to extend for a further 4 years. However, this was before Broadcom had acquired VMware. Well, that dispute is ongoing, with Tesco trying to get what was agreed to, but Broadcom seemingly being unwilling to fulfill that obligation. But in an update, the Register has reported Tesco has decided to quit VMware and Broadcom's mainframe products altogether and is now rushing to migrate to alternatives. And they've turned to third party support providers for their existing VMware estate, alleging that Broadcom is abusing its market power. In its most recent filing, Tesco has stated, quote, faced with Broadcom's abusive conduct and given the criticality of virtualization and mainframe software and services to its business, Tesco has been forced to incur material costs to procure alternative solutions with reduced functionality and to migrate to that software in a manner and on a time frame that creates very significant risks to the business. End quote. Those costs include payments for third-party VMware support because Broadcom has stopped supporting the virtualization software as of January of this year, and Tesco hopes to be off of VMware entirely by the end of 2027, but says that target is its earliest possible date and will require it to work at an exceptional pace. Broadcom appears to have made Tesco at least 4 offers, including a strategic proposal in July 2024 that covered virtualization mainframe products, but Tesco has so far rejected the offers. So, I mean, I'm not a big fancy lawyer by any means, but the way I'm interpreting this is it seems like Tesco is putting it out there that they're going to be getting, reduced capabilities. They're going to have to work at an exceptional pace. They're paying a third party. So I think they're trying to build a case that yes, they're going to move long term away from VMware products anyways because of the acquisition and this whole kerfuffle with them and Broadcom, but they're going to continue pursuing their case, and they're going to make that case that they've incurred these costs and this hardship. So they're probably going to try and win a settlement or decent compensation from Broadcom for the hardship and for the fact that it seems like, at least from what's claimed, that they're reneging on that option that VMware had previously agreed to allow the option of a 4-year extension. So I'm sure when this case concludes, it'll be in the news and I'll be covering that too. Next week, on July 1st, the changes to the Microsoft 365 plans that I covered in a previous episode of the podcast will come into effect. And this means that the Microsoft 365 plans for EMS E3, including Microsoft 365 E3, will include new capabilities for Intune, such as Intune Remote Help, Intune Advanced Analytics, and Intune Plan 2. For Microsoft 365 E5, you get all of those in addition to Intune Endpoint Privilege Management, Microsoft Cloud PKI, Intune Enterprise App Management, and Microsoft Security Copilot. In local news for me, it has been reported that the Irish government is budgeting €1 billion for renewal of Microsoft product licenses after their current licensing agreement signed back in 2023 is set to expire this September. About €250 million is reportedly just part of a contingency plan. So I think realistically, comparing with the previous renewal that was 3 years long and was signed 3 years ago, that was €350 million. So now, if you minus the 250 million that's contingency, it's gone from €350 million for a 3-year agreement to €750 million for 4 years. But given that contingency, is there some sort of change in what subscription tiers or what licensing applies? Is that why they've built in a contingency? Because they think it could be more based off of if they're trying to renew the same products, but they've changed tiers? Maybe that's all it is, because then it could be closer to that €1 billion. In response to the astronomical fee, there has been calls within Ireland for the government to find non-Microsoft alternatives like some of their European counterparts in France and Germany. And I find that interesting because this shout seems to be driven by the licensing costs being so high rather than the digital sovereignty argument that Germans and the French have been making. Ireland's year of holding the presidency for the European Union, which is coming up soon, will cost less than what we pay for Microsoft licensing, which is quite a statement. So when you have the presidency, there's security costs that you have to entail for the year, and that's going to be, I think, just shy of 250 million euros for the year. So, if it's a billion euros over 4 years, there's a possibility that the Microsoft licensing alone that we pay for government licensing is more than the security during the year of the European presidency. Crazy. WindowsCentral.com has reported that Microsoft's controversial feature for tracking employees' networks location via Teams is now available for organizations. The option has now been labeled as workplace check-in via Wi-Fi within the Teams settings. Microsoft says the feature is a new way to help users understand their counterparts' availability at work, saying, quote, workplace check-in helps keep the employee's work plan up to date and includes the ability to check the employee into an existing desk reservation. When schedules shift or someone decides to come into the office, employees who choose to use it can have their network location updated without needing to manually adjust their status each time. End quote. Yeah, which, hey, that in itself seems kind of useful, but how it's going to be used. Therefore, I'm sure people are justified in being skeptical. And they say about the feature that employees remain in control, and the workplace check-in via Wi-Fi option does not replace a user's choice to share their workplace location, and individuals can configure their setting at any time. It does not retain or track information about employee movement or location over time, allegedly, and workplace location is a current, in the moment signal and not stored for historical data. It applies only to workplace contexts. The signal is generated when the device connects to a configured corporate office network through the Teams client and does not extend beyond those environments. Otherwise, if not connected to a configured network in a workplace location, your location will be shown as remote. It's worth noting that the workplace check-in feature designed with both organizational controls and individual choice in mind, meaning if the required location settings are turned off, workplace check-in via Wi-Fi will not automatically activate regardless of your organizational configuration. And as such, organizations will decide whether to enable the capability for their tenant. What's more, they could decide whether the end user experience is opt in or opt out. Well, now, see, that's a bit different, isn't it? You can also update your settings and manually set or override your work location at any time. So, the way I interpret this, it seems like, yeah, you could enable it and then just hope that employees are ignorant enough not to switch it themselves, perhaps, which I think most people will be blissfully unaware that this is a thing. At the time of this recording, where I'm located in Ireland, I continue to see a warning label in Claude that the Mythos Fable 5 version of the model is still unavailable. Now, at this time, there's also been speculation that it may become made available to those who are willing to verify that they are US citizens by providing a US passport, which appears to have triggered an idea within the Apple community that perhaps those with Apple devices who have an Apple Wallet could leverage Apple's digital ID feature for verification to allow pass through to those latest models. Now, this is all just community fun and games right now. There is no suggestion from Claude themselves that this is a path forward. And from what I can see, it remains widely unavailable. In an updated support document spotted by windowslatest.com, Microsoft have reiterated that they will officially end support for Office 2021 on October 13th of this year. And as of now, Microsoft seems steadfast on the end of support date and does not appear to be offering any last-minute reprieves or concessions for Office 2021 fans. And after October 13th, you'll be operating 2021 without patches, fixes, or official security support from the company. While Microsoft may be eager to push more users toward its subscription-based productivity offerings, many with Office 2021 view this solution as a buy once, own forever, and they like the idea of a perpetual license type setup. However, if you are looking to stay within support and getting those security updates beyond the October 13th deadline, the easiest path forward is either moving to Microsoft 365 or upgrading to Office 2024. But now, this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. One tip this week, and it's actually a continuation from one of the stories covered, but the Microsoft MVPs, or at least a group of them, are featured in an article that's explaining the new 365 plans that roll in some of the previous Intune Suite add-on features. So if you'd like to learn about things like the remote help capabilities, for example, you could check out these useful blog posts that have been featured that have also been published or produced by Microsoft MVPs. And I'll share a link to that with this episode, which once again is episode 445. One last quick point. On Thursday afternoon, I'm going to attempt a YouTube live stream. So what I'm thinking of doing, and hey, maybe I'll change my mind before then. What I'm thinking about doing is maybe covering a couple of topics from this week's episode and just kind of opining on them in a kind of longer form, like maybe do a 20 to 30 minute stream. And I'll maybe leave the chat open as well within YouTube. So if you have any discussion you'd like to start, by all means, come along. And you can find that at the 5 Bytes Podcast YouTube channel. And I'll be sharing it on my socials. So if you're not already following me on LinkedIn for 5 Bytes Podcast, or on my personal Blue Sky, which is Rory Mon, do so. And then you'll see when I'm going to go live. But that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening.